Hey, hope you're doing well. You're listening to episode 8 of The Employer's Emphasis. I'm your host, Adam Varahachikol with Employers, America's small business insurance specialist. The Employer's Emphasis features all kinds of content, from interviews with people not only from employers, but others within the insurance industry, and great nonprofit organizations we support, including Kids Chance, which is the topic of today's episode, and an organization Employers is a proud national sponsor of. I had the opportunity to chat with Kids Chance of America's executive director, Vicki Burkhart. We dive deep into Kids Chance and how and why it came to be, the importance of this organization, how agents and others in the industry can get involved, and so much more. But before we get to that interview, learn more about Kids Chance by heading to their official website at kidschance.org. There, you can read inspiring stories from scholarship recipients, find your local Kids Chance chapter, learn how you can support, and much more. Once again, that's kidschance.org. And now at this time, joining us via the Employers line, I'm very excited to introduce the Executive Director of Kids Chance of America, Vicki Burkhart. Vicki, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm very well today, Adam. Thank you.
Great. So let's kick things off with what Kids Chance is all about.
I describe Kids Chance as a national movement, actually. You know, here at Kids Chance, we envision a time when all children affected by a parent's work-related injury or death can pursue their educational dreams without financial burden. You know, at this point, we currently have 48 separately incorporated state nonprofits and a national organization focused on reaching that vision, though our missions are slightly different. So the mission of Kids Chance of America, our national organization, is to create a strong Kids Chance presence in all 50 states by providing national visibility, financial support, and best practices to each Kids Chance organization. At the same time, each of our state nonprofit organizations provides the actual scholarship to students within their respective states, those students who have a parent who has experienced a workplace injury or death. That's pretty much what Kids Chance is about.
How did Kids Chance come to fruition?
We owe that all to Bob Clyatt. Bob Clyatt was a workers' compensation attorney in Valdosta, Georgia, and he founded Kids Chance actually in 1988. It was through his work as an attorney he witnessed the, I think as he describes it, life-shattering impact of serious workplace injuries on the children of these families. With the assistance of the Workers' Compensation section of the Georgia Bar, Bob incorporated Kids Chance of Georgia and began raising money to fund educational scholarships for the children of injured Georgia workers. He often describes scenes from his office where he would be working with parents and kids would be along. I think it just broke the heartstrings of Bob to the point where he fought tirelessly with the nonprofit charitable office of Georgia to get a nonprofit 501c3, but accomplished that in 1988. Once established, it took off. It was sort of like the Johnny Appleseed throughout the country. Kids Chance of Georgia began reaching out to other state organizations and encouraged and even assisted them in establishing their own Kids Chance organizations. I think thanks to their efforts, Kids Chance has been organized pretty much throughout the country. In 2002, and I know Bob Clyatt was very involved in this, there was the first Kids Chance conference held in St. Louis, Missouri. And the attending Kids Chance organizations, of which I believe there were about 9 or 10, agreed to meet annually with the goal of ultimately forming a national Kids Chance association. Subsequent meetings were hosted in different states, resulting in the incorporation of Kids Chance of America actually in 2007. Since our beginnings in 1988, Kids Chance has grown and evolved, and we've really become what I describe as a diverse group of employers, insurers, labor, state government workers, medical care providers, plaintiff and defense attorneys, everyone who's working together to make a difference in the lives of children affected by workplace injury, ultimately helping them reach their educational dreams.
Absolutely. So how many estimated students have benefited from this great organization?
We monitor this, Adam, each year with our state organizations, and I will say since its inception in 1988, if you look cumulatively at Kids Chance, we have awarded 7,300 scholarships totaling over $24 million, and that's cumulatively and collectively all of our states together. And actually, 2019 was a relatively landmark year for Kids Chance of America, where we really saw expansion out to 47 states, including a new affiliate in New Mexico. We awarded more than $447,000 from the national to support state scholarship programs, and we were able to actually create an endowment through the generosity of a donor contributing $1 million to the organization. Our largest gift ever received, I have to say. I think all of this will ultimately benefit the kids that we serve.
Yes, so talk about the importance of Kids Chance for so many families affected by the injury or death of a worker on the job.
Let me discuss the need a little bit, and we talk about this, when we talk about our case for support. According to some of the latest published statistics, there were about 5,100 fatal occupational industry injuries in the United States. There are no records of how many children are actually affected, but it is reported that about 3,000 of those fatalities were workers between the ages of 20 and 55. So we consider that prime years of parenthood when children would most likely be impacted by a loss of a parent. Along with that grief of losing a parent and the stress of caring for an injured parent, and we see this through a lot of our student testimonials and our student interviews with current student recipients, the children of these injured workers can no longer count on the parent's income, and the likelihood that they can afford college education increases, or that they cannot afford a college education increases, I think, significantly through these accidents and deaths. The whole family dynamic changes, and you can see and listen to from some of these kids just the painful reality that life will be different. Statistics on these families with an injured parent who cannot return to work are very limited. So a lot of our data is really surrounding the fatalities. But we do know that the financial impact of growing up in a single-parent household is well documented. A child with only one working parent is more likely to live in poverty. In 2018, the median income of a single-parent family was $41,000 compared to $88,000 as a median income for a two-parent family. So we know, just based on some of these peripheral statistics, that when we're looking at the kids who are in families where parents are impacted by workplace injuries or God forbid, deaths, that there is a significant financial impact on the kids. Where we have really been focusing a lot of our time is how we can lessen that impact, especially in scholarships for kids to attend post-secondary school, the college of their choice, or even technical schools that will help support what it is that they need to do.
So, Vicki, I have a few sound bites from a few scholarship recipients I interviewed in the past that I'll play for you. Respectively, it's Hannah Roach of Kids Chance of Nevada scholarship recipient and Allie Kernath for Kids Chance of New Jersey.
Since I do want to go to law school, I always am trying to figure out how to not put it all on my parents to help me pay for it. Also don't want to be in debt when I get out of school, so I'm really thankful for Kids Chance and everything they can do to help me out.
Kids Chance actually made it possible for me to return back to High Point for my sophomore year and actually pursue and graduate with a degree in human relations. Without Kids Chance, I honestly would not have been able to return to school with all the medical bills that had added up, and now we're on my mom's shoulders.
Vicki, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you just heard from Hannah and Allie.
Well, one of the things that always impresses me, Adam, is that these kids are so concerned about their parents and not being a burden to their parents, not creating more financial difficulties in a situation that is already, or in many cases, strained. These kids are just unbelievably responsible. Their foresight in how they are trying to navigate their educational plans is impressive, and most of them, and I think in the case of your testimonials, will credit Kids Chance as making a significant contribution to their ability to lessen the burden and perhaps even get through college with less debt and less financial pressure themselves, which of course is our goal.
What would you say is the most challenging thing Kids Chance faces overall?
What we are experiencing, I think, over the last 8 years is significant growth. We've grown from about 19 state organizations when I came on board as the executive director of Kids Chance of America to now 47 separately incorporated nonprofit organizations that are trying to raise funds and award scholarships. And I think part of our challenge is keeping the momentum and hoping that the growth factor is not creating too much strain within these volunteer-driven organizations. Each of them has a responsibility to their nonprofit designation to have, active boards and corporate responsibility and working committees. And for the most part, these are volunteers only. So the larger we get and the more responsibilities that are, I think, placed upon some of our state organizations, the more strain that is there. It's one of the reasons why, part of the mission of Kids Chance of America is to really provide support and assistance to our nonprofit state organizations. So it's our role to help lessen the load and to provide support services and to reach out with some best practices that may help them not only be able to shoulder some of the impact of this growth, but to use it to their advantage and to capitalize on it. For instance, the national organization provides a number of avenues now for national visibility, the largest being our Kids Chance Awareness Week, which happens in November. And there is a lot to be gained, I think, for the state organizations by participating in that week. But there's also then the responsibility of coming up with those activities and being able to sustain them and having some volunteers who can help, with marketing and social media and some of the other things that are asked of them. So when you ask about challenges, I think it is just that. We haven't seen just growth in Kids Chance of America. We have seen significant growth from this office all the way through the state organizations. I would say we are not jogging anymore. We've really moved to a brisk pace, and I think keeping that going is always a challenge. Along with that, I would say the second thing I would mention as a challenge for us and an ongoing challenge is that we are largely supported by the workers' compensation community, which is terrific for us because they are generous and they are engaged and I think committed to the mission of Kids Chance. But as we grow larger, the resources begin to get spread more thinly. New avenues of revenue definitely need to be identified. It's one of the reasons why I was thrilled to announce last year the establishment of the Kids Chance Endowment Fund, which was created by individual donors who are committed to the legacy of Kids Chance and who have made gifts that will basically grow in perpetuity to support Kids Chance in the future. So while this is a fund that will need to grow and be nurtured over the years, it really does speak more specifically to individual donations than the corporate donations that are a large part of our revenue source. And I think constantly looking at those revenue streams, not only to support the programs at the national level, but to be able to continue to funnel down to the states the level of scholarship support we would like to see, I think is important. Those revenue sources and diversifying them is another challenge for us in the coming years.
So I was talking with a few folks related to Kids Chance, and my understanding is that finding the applicants is more of a challenge, which is where the hashtag more money for more kids comes in. I'd love to get your insight.
There are few, if any, direct pipelines to these at-risk students. It's one of the reasons why we really explored and ultimately created a program called Planning for the Future. And in Planning for a Future, when a worker is severely injured or killed on the job, we realize that, it doesn't just affect them, it affects the entire family. And thinking about the future is not always something that happens at that moment. And in fact, in many cases, the kids are young, 2, 3, 4 years old. Cost of higher education, not even on anybody's radar at that particular time. Which is why we thought as a way to help build a pipeline of students who could potentially benefit from Kids Chance Scholarship, we devised our what we call Planning for the Future initiative, which is really designed to identify and collect information and maintain information on those potential applicants who are not yet of college age. We collect and maintain their information so that we can reach out to them with the opportunity to apply for a scholarship when the time is right. The National actually has this collection of data and maintains that for the state. When submissions in the database turn 16, we then direct them to the appropriate state in which they would be eligible to apply for a scholarship. At any time, anyone, a parent, a guardian, a workers' comp claimant, a nurse practitioner, anyone can go onto the database, and if they have the claim information and the name and at least a contact piece for a parent of a student, they can register through the database, and we will at least maintain that information and do our best to ensure years later that that student has an opportunity to explore a Kids Chance scholarship. We're really very much about helping kids achieve those dreams. One would think it would be relatively easy to identify all of these kids, especially since we live within the workers' compensation industry, but you'd be surprised because of HIPAA requirements and state requirements, etc., how difficult it is to actually access that information. I think we've got a lot of people, feet on the ground, that are working on our behalf and trying to identify those students and move them to our Planning for the Future program or directly to a state where they could benefit from scholarships. But it's a difficult process. We have some very committed and I think undeterred states who are making landmark progress in finding ways to secure the information and connections to the students that they need. I know Illinois and California, for instance, have mounted large operations to reach out to individual high school, college guidance counselors with specific information on the Kids Chance Scholarship Program. They have seen an incremental increase in the number of scholarship applications that they have seen in those states. I know others, Nevada being one of them, have really worked with the legislature to come up with ways that some of that information can be delivered to or made available to the Kids Chance state organization so that they are better able to find and connect to students who are in need. We've got some large employers, Comcast being one of them, who has begun to integrate the Planning for the Future program into their outreach, HR and workers' comp outreach, so that it is part of the discussion when an employee is injured on the job. So we're trying as many avenues as possible. But again, it does get a little tricky, and it is challenging to try to find. We don't think on some levels we're even scratching the surface on the number of kids who would actually be eligible for our scholarship, which is why you get back to that hashtag, which has become our mantra, more money for more kids.
So Employers is a proud national sponsor, and so are a number of other groups in insurance. Why is Kids Chance a great fit for insurance groups to promote to not only affected families, but to get involved?
Well, first, I would like to thank Employers for their national partnership, their commitment to Kids Chance of Nevada, which I think has been navigated very well under the strong attention of Employers, and to their initiative in creating ways to provide funds to our individual state organizations. Employers has been just at the forefront of, I think, both scholarship dollars and being able to help uncover new scholarship applicants for us. The prior program provides, it's critical to the Kids Chance of America and really the Kids Chance state organizations. It provides the resources necessary to continue, I think, really with our growth in a sustainable manner. And with such significant growth, I think our attention is always to how do we sustain this? How do we keep that momentum? Both in providing scholarship funds and providing direction, nonprofit expertise and support to our growing Kids Chance state organizations. I've worked in the nonprofit arena my entire career, and I have to say I have never found a better fit between an industry and a nonprofit as I do between Kids Chance and the workers' comp community. I believe Kids Chance actually, on some levels, becomes the common denominator in the workers' comp industry. It can, at times, become a little strained. You've got attorneys on both sides. You've got insurance companies and TPAs. You've got service providers, etc. But when people come together in the conference room around Kids Chance, if the board sits down, we've got a real diversified team of professionals in an industry that truly understands the impact that these workplace injuries and deaths have on a family. And I think it's because of that the fit is so good, and that it allows the stakeholders, all of the members of the workers' comp community, to give back through Kids Chance and the Kids Chance Scholarship Program. There are many ways that our partners and other members of the community can get involved in Kids Chance, and much of that can be beyond financial support. I mentioned our state now at 47, soon to be 48, with Rhode Island coming on momentarily. All of our states have volunteer boards and committees that are always looking for new, energized, creative volunteers. Even our national organization has a growing need for volunteer support. So I say to those who are interested in learning more about Kids Chance or engaging Kids Chance in some manner, coming on board and working with some of our state organizations, whether you're a member of the golf committee or you're serving as one of the officers on a state board, the more people that we have involved, the less any one person has to shoulder, and ultimately the stronger the organization gets. Communications is also something that I point out to people as a way to get involved. Whether you follow us on some of our social media outlets, or put a planning for the future card in your briefcase, so that when you're meeting with clients you have some information. I think our best sort of spokespeople are those that are working directly with the families that are impacted by workplace injuries and deaths, and the more that we can help educate them and make and communicate Kids Chance to these families, I think the more successful we will be.
So talk a little bit more about how people can help and get involved.
Well, one of the things that we always point people to is our National Awareness Week, because the idea behind that is to make big noise as possible. So whether you're sponsoring $1 for wearing jeans to the office day, or you're taking a student out to lunch, or you're doing a major fundraising event, or simply attending and being part of this sort of national effort. I sort of point that out to people as one way that we can get everybody in the community active in one way, shape, or form. And simply making sure that you are displaying the Kids Chance pin on your jacket or your dress, and making sure that you're able to let people know what that means and why you're aligned. I think it's one of the strongest outlets we have for perpetuating Kids Chance throughout the country. It's why I call this a movement. And more at these national events, I am seeing people displaying their Kids Chance pin and Kids Chance pride throughout.
Talk about some of the resources you offer that you want to highlight.
Well, one of the things that we launched this year that I think has been a tremendous success for us is a very vibrant webinar program directed primarily at our state organizations, but certainly open to anybody in the community who would like to attend. We had sessions on, what every board member needs to know, and a webinar on state treasurers talking about nonprofit finances and social media. Very successful way of disseminating information and connecting volunteers to topical issues, and really being able to provide, I think, some strong takeaways for our state organizations and other volunteers through a 1-hour webinar that we host monthly. We also run what we call an accelerator program, and this is really specific to states who have hit hurdles that they can't seem to conquer on their own, and we send a team of nonprofit professionals to work directly with the state in sort of combating whatever those obstacles may be, and they vary from meeting board development help to looking at their fundraising platforms, to whether or not they've got a governing structure in place with active committees, etc. Whatever we need to do to help jumpstart, in some ways, the organization back to a path of sustainability, I think is really, really important to us, and something that we have invested a lot of time, energy, and resources into. We've had one successful completion. We've got 2 accelerators underway, and we're looking to launch a 4th in the second quarter of this year. So these are all ways for our organizations to get stronger.
So as we begin to wind down here, we now know who Vicki Burkhart, Kids Chance of America Executive Director is, but we want to get to know who you are a little bit more as a person. So with that said, what and or who has helped shape you into the person you are today?
That's an interesting question. Adam, I would have to say that it's certainly my family. I grew up with a strong sense of right and wrong and a value system that I think has helped to navigate most of my decisions along the way. My parents were not college educated, hard workers. I think my father started as a milkman. My mother was working third shift in a pie making company, and they worked very hard to sort of improve themselves, but they were always there. We always sat down to family dinner every night. There was a strong sense of going further and doing better. I think I have a tendency to champion the underdog in almost all circumstances. I think that a lot of that came to me just from watching, how hard as a family we worked to move forward. I think it's part of the reason why I was drawn to a career in the nonprofit arena, and work in many cases with organizations that just are in need. So I would have to say that I think I'm pretty much the person I am today because of Bob and Barb.
What's something you failed at but have learned so much from? This could be personal or professional.
I'm learning every day. I have to say, and I'd be the last person to say I was an expert at anything. Just when I think I have things pretty much under control, I find out what I didn't know. It's always what you don't know you need to know. I've been in business now for 21 years, working in my own consulting firm dealing with nonprofit organizations, and I have to tell you, some weeks the failures well outnumber the successes. But from my failures, I think we learn each time how to do what it is we need to do better. And since our better translates into, I hope, something that's a stronger deliverable for many nonprofit clients, I look at that as ultimately a good thing. So we learn how to take missteps and errors and translate them into a stronger platform for delivering service to the clients, and I think ultimately success for the company. I think the vote is still out on how successful we will be, but I think we're working towards that. I've learned that it's the team that counts, and I have been so fortunate to be able to be working with a team of just tremendous nonprofit professionals who I think are a breed of people who we do things for our clients because we believe in our clients, not necessarily because it's in some articulated scope of services. And I think most of my clients would agree that we probably provide more than they bargain for, but that's because we believe in what we do, and we believe in the groups we support, and certainly Kids Chance is one of those.
What's something you're curious about right now? And again, this can be personal or professional.
I am an inherently curious person, so I have a tendency to question just about everything. In fact, I'm a regular traveler, and I still sit in the plane and try to figure out how it gets off the ground. I will forever be mesmerized by the fact that plane actually goes up in the air. But I would say, my curiosity typically surrounds people, and in my job, 90% of the job, 90% of it really has to do with people and the group dynamic and what makes people do what they do, and how you navigate groups of, sort of unrelated volunteers through the tasks required to move organizations forward. How to deal with difficult personalities or people who have difficulty getting engaged. How all of that works together in a group dynamic. I would say for any successful nonprofit organization, it's all about the people, and to the degree that I can impact how that group dynamic works, that I am, I guess, curious enough or insightful enough to really, I guess, bring out the best in everyone to sort of make that work together. I think that's something that I'm intrigued by. How to make it all come together for the benefit of the organization, especially when there are people and personalities in play.
What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I'm a theater buff. I was at the Hasty Puddings theatrics presentation of Mean Ghouls last night. I don't know if you're familiar with that up here at Harvard, and I live in Boston. So I try to get out to as many theater productions as possible. It's what I like to do. It sort of allows me, I guess, to sort of move into a different character in a different realm, and and theater is just prevalent up here, and I enjoy that. I enjoy a good book. I'm an avid reader, so I do sort of sink myself into stories. Long walks on a sunny day along the Charles. I'm basically very content. Do like fitness, so I do work out on a regular basis. I do a little traveling, but I would say I'm pretty much a theater, book, art kind of person. That's where I put a lot of my spare time and where I can disconnect, if you will, from the day-to-day.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I have to tell you, Adam, I really gave this a lot of thought because I really did give this a lot of thought. I can't think of anything else. I love what I do, and I've always loved what I've done. And while the nonprofit arena is not always as lucrative as perhaps other careers are financially, the fulfillment that I have gotten from my experiences with, oh gosh, I don't even know how many nonprofits over the last 22 years, is just ultimately extremely gratifying. And I think it's that gratification and that sense of fulfillment that I get from working with groups that really truly need me and need us and our services and the team. I think at the end of the day, even once you sort of weed through some of the ups and downs, at the end of the day, it is what I do, and it's what I've done for 32 years, and I can't think of anything else I'd rather do.
Yeah, and I think you've achieved the dream here.
I think it sort of is, and to be really content about it and not be looking out, and when people sort of say, what else would you like to do? And I've certainly had the opportunity to explore other careers. I just, almost like I was led into the nonprofit arena even when I was in college and worked very much with, student government and orientation, and the big joke is I was always much more involved outside of the classroom than I was inside of the classroom. But I just think it was like a natural pathway for me. I think those people who knew me in college, especially the administrators, etc., would have guessed that I would go in this direction because I was always sort of led that way. So yeah, it's been a tremendous ride. It's been extremely rewarding, and at this point, being able to be in business for myself with a great team to work with allows me to really be able to focus on the clients and things that I want. And I think ultimately, as I start to approach the last phase of my career, I would like to start to be able to make significant impact now on the industry in the nonprofit world. And I think I've probably gained over the years enough perspective to start to do that a little bit more.
Awesome, Vicki. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I've been involved with Kids Chance. My involvement has spanned 19 years, actually. I started with a very small group of volunteers in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that were desperately trying to stay afloat. I think they had maybe $7,000 left in their treasury, and it was one of my first clients in my new business. So it's almost like, again, eerily destiny that Kids Chance and Vicki Burkhart aligned. And my work with Kids Chance of Pennsylvania led me to the position as Executive Director of Kids Chance of America. And I think, I've grown with the organization professionally, and I'm really hoping that my small role in this ever-growing national organization will ensure our ability to help those students that we talked about today who I think really need our help the most. So I'll leave you with that.
Vicki Burkhart, Kids Chance of America Executive Director. Vicki, thanks so much again for joining us on The Employer's Emphasis.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Thank you. Once again, if you'd like to learn more about Kids Chance, head to kidschance.org. And if you like the podcast, we'd love for you to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcasting app, whether it's Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. And that way you'll be notified every time a new episode is uploaded. Before we go, be sure to head to our website at employers.com, where you can find resources, small business tips, and request a workers' compensation insurance quote. Also follow Employers on social media on Facebook by searching Employers, America's Small Business Insurance Specialist. We're on Twitter and Instagram at the handle @employers_ins. Search Employers on LinkedIn, and on YouTube, our channel is at Employers Video, all one word. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Adam Varahachakol with the Employer's Emphasis, and we'll catch you next time.